Welcome back to TP201 Transfer Pricing for Tangibles. We've been talking about the resale price method, and this video is going to discuss essentially one of the first examples of a resale price method using data that's internal to the client. So, you may remember this example that we've used many a time where the two related parties are Japanco and UKco, and Japanco is selling products at a price of £7 per unit to UKco. So the total transfer amount is £70. And we're going to ask the question essentially, can we establish that UKco was selling, say, similar goods, earning a margin that was similar? So the gross profit relative to the amount of sales, or the gross margin, would be the same whether it was with related or unrelated party goods that they're selling. And that approach, or that comparison of the gross margins, would be referred to as an internal RPM, or an internal resale price method. Internal meaning that the data came from within the client themselves. So let's talk about how that would work. Imagine that we had a distributor, in this case, that's got a total P&L of 600 in sales. The COGS are 414 with a gross profit of 186 and a gross margin of 31. But they're able to segment their data into categories. And in those categories are going to be three different types of goods. The goods are camcorders, TVs, and DVRs. But the interesting thing here is that in this case, the camcorders and the DVRs are purchased from unrelated parties and then sold on to unrelated parties. Whereas the TVs were purchased from the related party and sold to unrelated parties. So we have these two interesting reference points that give us some way to judge how much profitability there is in selling products, and we can compare what profits we make when it's an uncontrolled supplier versus a controlled supplier. Now, as you noticed, I haven't filled in the bottom line, which is their gross margins. That's our next slide. So here is basically a knowledge check to just really ask you to think about filling in what would the gross margin be for all of these three different categories. But particularly, let's start off with what are the gross margins when we work with unrelated suppliers, our third parties. I'm just going to bring up a pen and say I tried to make these numbers easy. So it's pretty clear here that in the camcorder category, the gross margin is going to be the 27 in profit over the sales of 100. So a 27% gross margin. In the case of the DVRs, it's 99 over 300. Again, a fairly simple math. So that's got a gross margin of 33%. So a range from 27 to 33%. If we look then at our related party, we've got a gross profit of 60 over sales of 200. So that's pretty straightforward. That's a gross margin of 30. Well, that's a real good result if we can have that happen regularly, because in that situation, the gross margin from selling the TVs purchased from related parties is 30%. And it falls within the range of the gross margins we had from the unrelated parties. Remember, that gross margin ranged from 27% down here to 33% for our DVRs. So we're in the range. We met the arm's length standard. Let's take this one step further to get used to how these things calculate. Imagine now that you're going to go back to the related party, your client, and you're going to tell them your COGS could have ranged from what to what, and you would have met the arm's length standard. Their COGS right now are 140, and that puts them nicely in the middle of the range. But if we think about this problem, we can start off saying, well, what if their margin had actually been a gross margin of 27%? Well, if that's the case, then 27% of the 200, which are their sales. Remember, the sales aren't going to change in any of these cases because the sales are to unrelated parties. 27% of 200 would be essentially 54, right? We can just double that amount, so 54. And then that would imply that they could have bought the TVs for as much as 146 and still have earned a margin that would have been equal to what would have been earned from buying something from an unrelated party. And on the other end, we could say, well, again, if we started here at 33, which is the gross margin from the DVR sales and apply that to the 200 in sales, because again, that's not going to change. That's an unrelated party transaction. We're going to get a profit level of 66, implying that we would have been able to purchase these TVs for as little as 134 and still had a profit that would have put us in the range. My threes are a little hard to draw there. So that said, we go down here and we'd see the answer then would be our choice D. 134 to 146 is the arm's length range of the cost of goods sold for this related party. Thanks. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'd love to get feedback on these, so please give us a like or a comment and let us know how we can improve them. Have a great day.